when we are looking at the reasons for this attack, how much do you think Israel-Hamas conflict is the somewhere in the root of this clause?
Hmm. I think it is. It's part of the background that has been, for all of us around the world over the last 2 years, and it's been a shocking thing that has been happening, um, and people will respond to it, in many ways, and the response internationally has been very strong. So in some parts of the world, yes, in places in the world where there's a strong Arab or Muslim population, there's been a very strong reaction to all of that, and a strong sense of frustration that nothing has been effectively done to stop the killing. That causes some people to be extremely frustrated, and there will be some individuals who decide to lash out in response. So in the United States, for instance, I'm aware of some shootings, some bombings that are directed at Jewish people. Not too many, but there have been some. They're tragic, they're pointless, but they happen. In the United States, the response to the last 2 years has been fascinating because for the first time ever, of opinion in a big section of opinion in American society has shifted away from traditional support for Israel. So the polls have shown for the first time ever that 53% of Americans are now more sympathetic to Palestine than they are to Israel, which is a stunning change, which means that a lot of young people don't think about those issues in the way that their parents did. A lot of young Jews don't think about it in the way that their parents did. A lot of people who are conservatives don't think of it in the way that other conservatives have thought about it. So that's very interesting. In Australia, I've been very disappointed with the public debate about these issues here. And that's partly because we have a poor public debate on most things, and this one's no exception. Our media is dominated by a handful of big organisations, and it tends to be that the influence of the pro-Israel lobby is very strong in those organisations. So if you look at the News Corp media organisations, they've been astonishingly pro-Israel in a way that is quite shocking, really, because they make no attempt to offer a balanced view of the issues or even to present various opinions. They just don't have various opinions at all. There is only one opinion. And on the Palestinian side, there have been a lot of protests from activists about this, and I always regard protests as a bit problematic because I'm not the sort of person who likes to participate in protests. I did it a bit in my youth, but I don't like protest actions. I don't like the chanting of slogans. It tends to be a bit mindless for me. I would prefer people just had an in-depth conversation about these issues, one-to-one or in a group situation, and actually unpacked all of the things that are going on and trying to reach some sensible conclusions about how things can improve. So there have been a lot of protests, and people on the right tend to look at those protests that are pro-Palestinian and think, we should stop this. We should close down the protests. We should stop people voicing opinions that are critical of Israel. And I find that response fairly strange because often it comes from the very same people who say they support freedom of speech. And one of the things about the freedom of speech issue is that very few people are consistent in supporting freedom of speech. Many people who say they support freedom of speech now say they want to introduce hate speech laws to stop people being critical of Israel. Now, to me, that is crazy. I tend to be a bit of a purist on the issue of free speech. I don't think it's possible to regulate hate speech very, very effectively. So it's best just to allow people to say what they like, subject to a limit which kicks in if anyone advocates violence or indeed commits violent activities. Well, then that should be a matter for the law. But up until that point, people should pretty much be able to say what they think, because it's just too difficult to try to regulate it in any other way. That's my view on that issue. So I have been a bit appalled in the last couple of weeks to hear quite a number of people say protest marches that are supporting Palestine should be disallowed. They should be disallowed. And I think, whoa, no, this is not consistent with support for freedom of speech.